Wildlife Trust of India, Gujarat Forest Department, and Tata Chemicals Limited in the state of Gujarat. To officially start this event, I request Mr. Vivek Menon, Executive Director and CEO of Wildlife Trust of India, to welcome all the dignitaries and participants and set the tone for this event. Vivek sir.
Thank you, Faruqa. Mr. Surendra Kumar, Principal Chief Conservator of Forest and Chief Wildlife Warden of the state of Kerala. Mr. Sanjay Srivastav, Chief Conservator of Forest, Junagadh, Government of Gujarat. Mr. Rahul Pandey, Chief Conservator of Forest, Andhra Pradesh Forest Department. Alka Talwar and Satish Trivedi from Tata Chemicals, our principal donor to this project. Members of the Scientific Advisory Council, Rachel Graham is here. Mark Meakin and Simon Pierce will join us soon, is what I'm told. My friend of old and senior colleague, B.C. Chaudhary, and all others who have joined in from the team at WTI, from the international community, from media, and maybe just lovers of whale sharks from across the world. Welcome. International Whale Shark Day this time falls on a Sunday. So being a little considerate, we have decided to hold a webinar on whale sharks on Friday, today. And it is my pleasure to welcome you, which is my duty, but also to say a few words. I will not go into great detail, but just to say that this takes me back to 2002, perhaps, when I was walking the shores of Mithapur in Gujarat with a senior trustee of mine, Mr. Sujit Gupta, who's no more at the moment, and then Tata Chemical employee, but also a leader of conservation in the Tatas, and Alka's husband, Vivek Talwar. So the three of us walking the shores, discussing the problems that whale sharks face, suddenly came to this, I don't know how the discussion went, but it suddenly came to this realization that we were actually walking between two rather holy shrines of Hinduism, Somnath and Dwarka. This whole aggregation that we were talking about of whale sharks was happening between these two places. And then followed a major discussion on whether we can use this fact in conservation. Conservation is a place for science. Conservation is a place for logical, cold-blooded thinking. But at the same time, whale sharks were being killed. There was a famous movie by Mike Pandey, which had made all of us realize. There was the data that we had carried to CITES, where I, as a member of the Indian delegation, had lobbied to get it put on Appendix 2 at that stage, 2002, in Chile. But we were not doing anything in India. And we wondered whether we could use public sentiment, public emotion to save this gentle giant, the largest fish in the world. Gujarat has always been a leader in emotive protection of all sorts of wildlife, the lion being one of the prime examples in terrestrial conservation. Why can we not use this for a marine species, we argued. And we took that plunge of involving then a very, very revered social worker and religious reformer of Gujarat, Sri Morari Bapuji, as a person to carry the message to the people of Gujarat and indeed of this section of India. This has worked miraculously. I'm not going into numbers and statistics. I'm sure the team will come later on in the presentation and the panel discussions and give you several numbers. But just two things I want to highlight. One is that I'm told it's being rescued by cutting the net and putting the whale shark into the sea have been recorded till date. That's a very large number of recorded instances. There could be more. And I must at this stage also congratulate Gujarat Forest Department for coming out early in the game with the compensation mechanism for fishermen who are cutting the nets. That was a revolutionary technique which allowed fishermen to fearlessly follow the emotions of saving the shark's life, but by cutting the nets and not having a pecuniary loss. The second thing I want to say is that Morari Bapuji, when he first addressed the gathering, he of course first said that this is not killing a fish, it is killing God. It's killing deicide. He said, "Ye Dev Hatya hai." That itself stopped the killing. But later on, he said that this is Gujarat's Bahu, Gujarat's bride, married off. I believe it migrates. It has gone off, but comes back and gives birth. It is a great story, and it captured the imagination of the people. But scientifically, we didn't know whether it was true. We didn't question, because conservation is not only about science. We use science, but conservation is about making things possible. It's the art of making things possible, actually, using science at times. But at that time, we had no science to know whether it was a place where the bride of Gujarat came back to give birth to babies. I'm very happy to tell all of you that in the intervening period, and especially in the recent years, we have found 5 neonates. That means whale sharks less than 70 centimeters. 5 of them, 4 of them alive, and another 3 juveniles in the waters of Gujarat, now showing, scientifically proving that it is indeed a place where these small sharks are found, and small sharks being creatures that don't swim very far because of the way their fins are, we can reasonably estimate that they would have been born, that there would have been a breeding ground, a natal ground somewhere close by off the shores of Gujarat. So we can reasonably now say with some scientific proof that Morari Bapuji was correct, that these sharks are coming to the shores of Gujarat to breed. So with these 2 good stories, the number of sharks that are being released, and one of the highlights of science, we have got a few more interesting results, which I'm sure people will discuss later. Let me welcome all of you to this wonderful day of celebration of the International Whale Shark Day. I particularly welcome the 2 partners of the Wildlife Trust of India, the Gujarat Forest Department, and now moving forward from Gujarat, Kerala Forest Department, where we have started a project now off the shores of Kerala very recently, and Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, with whom we have just now newly signed an MOU to now expand what can legitimately be called a Gujarat model to other parts of India, and can work there as well as our long-standing partner, Alka and Tata Chemicals, who have not just funded this project, but have given the manpower and given the strength of true partnership of having a plant on the coast where the HR of people are interlinked with doing some good to the seas and the denizens of the seas. Let me also once again welcome our international guests, not only for providing such good science at a time when we didn't know much science of whale shark, and Rachel and Mark and Simon and others who are part of that exercise. But also Rachel, thanks for coming in at this late hour for you and staying up at midnight to listen to the whale shark celebrations in India. So welcome one and all, and I hand back to Faruka, our interpretologist, who's doing good work with the fisherfolk of Gujarat. Faruka.
Thank you so much, Vivek sir, for your kind words and setting the tone for this event today. I would now request and welcome Alka Talwar, Chief CSR and Sustainability Officer from Tata Chemicals Limited, to give her kind address. Ma'am.
Unmute.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible now. So it gives me great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Vivek, for inviting me. I'd also like to say thank you to the other partners who are also with me in this panel discussion. Mr. Surinder Kumarji, Mr. Sanjay Srivastav, Rahul Pandey from the Forest Department, and my own colleagues and Dr. Chaudhary and many more people that I know over the years being attached with this program. It's very heartening that the spirit and success of Whale Shark Conservation Project has continued for more than 15 years. It's been a really long-standing program, and I feel really happy that we were able to commit for such a long time, because I think no organization should commit for a year or 2 years. All of this effort requires a sustained long-term effort to understand conservation, to look at species revival, and to take it forward. So I'm really happy to to see that we've been in this program for more than 15 years. Even now, even the challenging times of the pandemic has not reduced our spirit. I'm really happy to be here today on the International Whale Shark Day, even though I would have loved to have a program, but this is good as well, because we are able to connect with so many people from across the world. And my heartiest congratulations to all our project partners for making this a great success. As Vivek has mentioned, we started long time back, around 2004, 5, I think, and we started we joined our hands together to start, this conservation effort. For us, it was not just about writing a check. We did fund it for a fairly large amount of money, but it was more about understanding and participating and getting all the people in Tata Chemicals involved to be part of the program. And that is joy, because it has helped us sensitize our employees. Normally a corporate is looked at as the big bad boy who does all wrong, and it is very essential to sensitize the people towards environment, towards causes such as species conservation. And this project has given us internally a great pride, and got all our people sensitized to to take up such a program. Vivek has already talked about whale shark being the pride of Gujarat, and more than 780 whale sharks being released, and these are all milestones. These are all points of celebration for us. I think this is the largest rescue program in the world, and I'm so glad to be a part of this program. The employees of Tata Chemicals have participated throughout, trying to create awareness, working with the village schools, doing the, working in partnership with the Forest Department and WTI, getting the people aware, taking out rallies, and trying to, put in as much effort as possible, the skills of the people that we have, helping procure things, in designing, trying to look at how we can do a good inflatable. So a lot of effort from the people. This is what a true partnership is all about. It's not about writing a check, but actually being a part of it, and being, owning up the overall process. Of course, there have been many wins for Tata Chemicals itself. We've won many accolades because we have been partners with this program, and I'm really happy to say that it helps us feel even better and more with a higher resolution of continuing to do more in these sort of programs. So we are really privileged to be a partner in this program. This is of great importance to the country. This whole thing is not about just saving one species. It's about understanding biodiversity conservation. It's about sensitizing corporates. It's about sensitizing our communities. It's about partnership and collaboration and working together, and all of us coming together for this larger cause. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of this. I'd like to thank Wildlife Trust of India. I'm so glad you took the time to come to Mithapur, walk on the beach, with my husband and others, and decide that it is a cause, and everybody deciding that this is a cause worth fighting for and taking it forward. And on behalf of Tata Chemicals, I'd like to wish the International Whale Shark Day, this celebration today of the year 2020, which itself is a remarkable year from all the things that have been happening around, a great success. And I hope that we can continue to partner with many more such programs and other efforts in the years to come. And Tata Chemicals is committed, especially to coastal and marine biodiversity conservation. Recently, we've tried to set up an organization which would work specifically for that, and would like to take even greater participation in such programs. Thank you, and thanks so much, and all the wishes, all my best wishes for the program ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ilka ma'am, for your kind words and the address. We all know TCL being the longest partner in this conservation and has contributed a lot to this conservation success in Gujarat. Thank you, ma'am. I would now request and welcome Mr. Surendra Kumar sir, Principal Chief Wildlife Warden and Government of Kerala. Sir.
My friend Mr. Vivek Menon, Executive Director and CEO of WTI, Ms. Alka Talwar, Chief CSR and Sustainability Officer, Tata Chemicals Limited, Mr. Sanjay Srivastava, CCF Gujarat, Mr. Satish Trivedi from Tata Chemicals Limited, Mr. Sajan John from WTI, and I can see people in the panel across the globe. Dr. Mark Meekan from Australia, Dr. Rachel Graham from Belize, Dr. Simon from Mozambique, Mr. Rahul Pandey from Andhra Pradesh Forest Department. So good morning to all of you. At the very outset, I express my deep gratitude to WTI, the co-host of this webinar, for inviting me to share my views. I also congratulate WTI for bringing in so many stakeholders together at this platform so that they can do their bits to save this majestic animal. It is widely acknowledged that there is a decreasing trend in whale shark population across the globe, as we go by the statistics of the bycatch and anecdotal reports. In recognition to this fact that it is decreasing, IUCN, that International Union for Conservation of Nature, it has reclassified the conservation status of whale shark from vulnerable to endangered in 2016. But much before that, 2016, Government of India has inserted Part 2A in the Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1971. This inserting was done in 2001. In this Part 2A of Schedule 1, whale shark is as number 1, and it is followed by other shark and rays and seahorse and giant grouper, etc. So Government of India has realized way back in 2001 that this majestic sea animal requires much more protection. And this is the highest protection that we can give under Wildlife Protection Act. What is meaning of that? Meaning is that as per Section 9 of the Wildlife Protection Act, no person shall hunt any animal which is in Schedule 1, 2, 3 or 4, except under except the provisions given under Section 11 and Section 12. Section 11 says that Chief Wildlife Warden can order hunting of such Schedule 1 animal if it is dangerous to life or it is disabled and diseased beyond recovery by a written order. That we have been doing in the case of tigers and elephants a number of times. And the penalty for killing Schedule 1 animal, it is much more than an ordinary offense. Ordinarily, under Wildlife Protection Act, penalty is limited to 0 years to 3 years, and with a 25,000 rupees of fine. But if it relates to Schedule 1 animal, then minimum punishment is 3 years, and it may extend to 7 years, depending on severity and circumstances of the case. So we have given a great protection to this animal by inserting in Part 2A of Schedule 1 in way back in 2001. Some estimates say that whale shark, it may not be more than 1 lakh throughout the globe. At best, they are counting only in tens of thousands, not in hundreds of thousands. So by any estimate, it may not exceed even 1 lakh. And the primary reason of such a low population or diminishing trend in the population is considered to be illegal fishing. Then getting trapped into the fishing gear, although it is unintentional, but it is happening perhaps with a lot of regularity. Colliding with boats and ships, and more than that, more than these factors, one factor in which we can always help is that is the plastics. These poor animals, they consume the plastics which we throw in the water system, and it becomes fatal to their survival. So what we can do, seeing these are the risk factors, and this sea animal is it is found in such a large area, which is difficult to I think monitor as we do in the terrestrial PA areas. It is not easy to monitor each and every square mile of the sea. But what we can do? In India, I believe that there is no targeted hunting of whale shark. It is all unintentional trapping by the fishing gears. So in such a situation, awareness among the fishing communities is of prime importance. We must have programs in which fishing communities can be taken to confidence that even if they have to sacrifice their nets, they should be ready to do that. But as fishing communities are financially very constrained, so naturally we have to have program which can compensate the cost of fishing nets to save whale sharks. Second thing that we can do is rescue efforts for a stranded whale shark in the shallow water or on the beaches. Forest department is well geared for rescue of terrestrial animals like leopard or tiger or elephant, snakes. But the department is not especially trained for doing such rescue work of whale shark. And I believe that department, along with other stakeholders, should enhance the capabilities to be of use for this majestic animal. Then this awareness regarding plastics. Although a number of things are told about plastics, but perhaps nobody who is throwing plastic into the water system may be imagining that it is going to be fatal to such a majestic animal like whale shark, at a very far distance from their habitation inside the sea. So, if you see all this, what we can do, then you'll realize that more than the regulatory framework, What we require is community participation, because this awareness creation regarding plastics or among the fishing communities, how to yeah, rescue whale shark, all these things require a strong community participation. Regulatory framework has very little to do with that. And NGOs are best placed, they are well placed to have such a interaction with communities and convince them. I gather that in Gujarat itself, Wildlife Trust of India has been able to save more than 700 whale shark in the last so many years, apart from the work that they are doing in other states. So NGOs like WTI, they are the people actually who can be of really good help in this endeavor. And of course, Forest Department can play a second fiddle to such efforts. So in this program, I once again congratulate WTI and Tata Chemicals and State Forest Departments for coming together to show their solidarity, to do something for this whale shark, and let this partnership become more and more strong and more meaningful over the years. And perhaps in coming time, we may be able to reverse the trend in population of this whale shark. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very informative to listen, especially from the Indian wildlife laws and enforcement perspective pertaining to whale shark conservation. Thank you, sir. I would now request and welcome Mr. Sanjay Srivastava, sir, Chief Conservator of Forest, Junagadh, Government of Gujarat. Sir, kindly give your address, sir.
Respected Mr. Vivek Menon ji, this is Alka Talwar ji, Surinder Kumar sir, PCCF and Chief Wildlife Warden, Government of Kerala, Mr. Satish Trivedi of Tata Chemicals, Mr. Sagar John of WTI, Professor B.C. Chaudhary, and other international panel members, Dr. Marek Makin, Dr. Rachel Graham, Dr. Seben J. Pierce, and my batchmate and good friend Rahul Pandey, IFS of Andhra Forest Department, and Dr. K.K. Dinesh. Good morning to all. Friends, as you have been hearing, Mr. Menon and even Mrs. Talwar also told what has been done in Gujarat. This project has been, this association has been going on for now, I think, more than 16 to 18 years. And a very good thing about this association is that all three partners, that is WTI, Tata Chemicals, and Gujarat Forest Department, they have been working as a team with a lot of mutual respect for each other. Probably that is one reason why this association has gone such long and has yielded the desired result and even exceeded. When we started, we did not anticipate that we could be so successful, because the kind of money was involved in this. We were very apprehensive, but with sustained effort, with good team effort, with utilizing the strength of the partners, we have come a long way ahead. Now, even Andhra Forest Department and Kerala Forest Department are also trying to achieve the same thing. And my suggestion or my experience with this project is that, first of all, obviously, as I told, there has to be mutual respect of all the partners. And then involving people is the key word in this, because as Surinder Kumar sir has already said that there is no targeted hunting of this animal anymore. It was there before it was declared as Schedule 1 animal. But after that, once it has been declared under Schedule 1, no targeted hunting takes place, but accidental catching in the nets, etc., does take place, and that has to be tackled. In Gujarat, if we see the figures, so far we have been able to successfully pay compensation for around 785 cases. And but the number we have saved is definitely not this, because there are no correct estimates how many numbers were hunted, but a rough estimate says that weekly 1 or 2 cases of targeted hunting was taking place before it was declared as Schedule 1. So if that we saw, around 300 would be a very safe estimate. 300 must have been hunted per year. So if you extrapolate it, we can easily say that after that, the entire thing, more than 5,000 animals or individuals of this species must have been saved. And out of that, 785 have been, I mean, in these 785 cases, we have paid the compensation, which we can say that it is direct intervention. Others are obviously because of the change in the protection status. But again, I would say this compensation thing also, it is going on well, and there are no complaints. On our side, what we try to do is that we try to, minimum documentation is obviously necessary, but we try to facilitate it as much as possible without losing it to such an extent that people misuse it. We don't allow that, but yes, we try to facilitate and try to smoothen it as much as possible. We try to ensure that the payments are paid timely and adequately. And so far, we have not received any complaint also. But more than that, as Mr. Menon already told in the beginning, the key thing of involving people was giving it a spiritual angle by Sri Morari Bapu. That was a very killer idea, I would say. And this kind of approach has to be done at other places also. Maybe the person could be different, the angle could be different, but we need to involve people in a really in a good manner so that they get involved in this whole process through their heart. I would say even we have heard many cases where these species get entangled in nets. People just release them without even cutting, or say even minimal cutting. They don't even come to us for compensation. So it is not that compensation is the deciding factor. They, if it is loss is high, they may come to us, but they don't. They are not saving it just for compensation. This is the point I want to make. They really want to now save this species. There's a genuine interest that people feel that no, this species needs to be conserved, and we should try as much as possible to save this species. So again, I would like to summarize it that the sooner or later, all the departments, the Arden Forest Department or Kerala, they will have to come up with the compensation scheme. They will have to ensure that timely payment and smoother payment is done. And all the team members need to show a lot of mutual respect for each other. Otherwise, as happens in other associations, the desired result does not come. So with these words, I would like to end my talk, and over to the moderator now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. As a run-up to this International Whale Shark Day, the project organized some online painting and quiz competitions for the school students. So I would now welcome and request Mr. Satish Trivedi, Deputy Manager, Community Development from Tata Chemicals Limited, to declare the winners of these competitions. Satish, sir.
Respected dignitaries, panel members, and my dear whale shark lovers. We had 2 competitions, the painting competition and the quiz competition. For the painting competition, we had two categories, the juniors and the seniors category. The juniors category was for students from 4th to 7th standard, and the seniors category was for students from 8th to 12th standard. We had a total participation of 180 students from all over India. That includes 12 states located across India. 100 students participated in the junior category of painting competition, and 80 students participated in the seniors category. The submission was done online, and the theme for the painting competition was our whale shark. And we begin with announcing the winners for the junior category. The first winner is Miss Pragati Dhoria from Aditya Birla Primary School, Veerawal, Gujarat State. Pragati is a student of the 4th standard. The second winner is Master Jaswant Bhattu from Tata Chemicals DAV Public School, Mithapur, Gujarat State. Jaswant is a student of the 5th standard. And we have the third winner, Divyangsha Vaidevi. She is from Aditya Birla Public School, Veerawal, Gujarat State, and studying in 6th standard. Our hearty congratulations to all the winners. We now come to the seniors category. The first winner is Yuktaraja ER from Little Flowers Girls High School, Mamayur, Kerala. She's studying in 9th class.
Yes.
The second winner is Emmanuel Jose from St. Joseph's High School, Ennamakkal, Kerala, a student of 8th class. And the third winner is Bhagirath Subhash Barad from Dhamlej Pay Center School, Dhamlej, Gujarat. He's a student of class 8. So hearty congratulations to all winners of the painting competition. We now come to the winners of the quiz competition. The quiz competition was for seniors category, that is class 8 to class 12 students. This was an online quiz competition, and we had a participation by 172 students from across 12 states of India. The theme for the online quiz competition was our sharks and rays. Out of the 172 students, the 3 best performers were selected as the winners. And the winners are, first winner, Shibin Suresh K. from Government Vocational Higher Secondary School, Vattinad, Palakkad, Kerala. He is a student of the 10th class. The second winner is Astha Patnaik, a student of Summerfield Schools, Gurugram, Haryana. Astha is a student of the 9th class. And the third winner is Shruti Yadav from Bhaukunj English Medium School, Mehsana in Gujarat. Shruti is a student of the 8th standard. Hearty congratulations to all winners of the quiz competition. And thanks a lot for participating in the event. With this, we come to the end of the announcement of the winners for the competitions. Over to Mr. Farooq Khan.
Thank you so much, sir. I would now request and invite Mr. Sergeant John, Head of the Policy and Marine Projects of WTI, to deliver the word of thanks to all the delegates and participants. Sir.
Thank you all. Well, before getting to the formal vote of thanks, I would like to share some glimpses of the International Whale Shark Day celebration by Tata Chemicals Limited at Mithapur, Gujarat. So today morning, they have distributed face masks with the message of whale shark conservation on it. And also a full-size whale shark inflatable has been kept inside the township of Tata Chemicals. So it's really good to see this going. Ravin, can you change the slide? There is one more photograph. Yeah, so it's a life-size inflated whale shark is there, kept inside the Tata township. Okay, so coming back to my duty, on behalf of the Whale Shark Conservation Project, I wish everyone a happy International Whale Shark Day. This project started in Gujarat and slowly expanded to other parts of India. Community support was integral for the success of this project. And today we all are here because of the active support of the fishing community. And I would thank all the fishing communities for their active support and also expecting the same support in years to come. I take this opportunity to thank all the dignitaries for their valuable time. I thank Sri Surendra Kumar IFS, Principal Chief Conservator of Forest and Chief Wildlife Warden, Government of Kerala, for his esteemed presence. I thank Sri Sanjay Srivastava IAFS, Chief Conservator of Forest, Junagadh Forest Circle, for gracing this occasion. I thank Ms. Alka Talwar, Chief CSR and Sustainability Officer, Tata Chemicals Limited, for her valuable time. I thank Mr. Vivek Menon, Executive Director and CEO of Wildlife Trust of India, for his esteemed presence. I thank Sri Satish Trivedi, Deputy Manager TCSRD, for announcing the winners. I also take this opportunity to thank panelists who will be interacting with all the participants immediately after this session. So we will be having a really informative and interactive panel discussion waiting after this. Also, I thank all the participants for their valuable time and also question to be here for the panel discussion also. Lastly, I congratulate all the winners of painting and quiz competition for putting lots of efforts to save our whale shark and to convey the message of saving the whale shark. Once again, on behalf of Whale Shark Conservation Project, I thank everyone. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So with this, here we end the opening session of this International Whale Shark Day. And now I would welcome and invite Professor B.C. Chaudhary, Executive Trustee and Senior Advisor to Aquatic Projects of WTI, to take over and moderate the panel discussion. B.C. sir.
Thank you very much, Farooqa. I think we are actually, unlike most other events, we are actually going much faster. We are not delayed on anything. We are in fact 15 minutes earlier than the time period when the panel discussion was supposed to start. I hope I am audible to everybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay. Let me first say, I think the event today is a curtain raiser to the International Whale Shark Day. As Vivek has rightly pointed out, the International Whale Shark Day is actually on the 30th of August, which falls on a Sunday. And therefore, we decided to conduct the event on a Friday so that, we will have a larger participation. And as you all probably know, 30th August is the day on which International Whale Shark Day is celebrated. to enhance the awareness on the plights and the conservation status of the whale shark. And this has been going on since 2012, and 2020 we are celebrating. I think the WTI has been celebrating this event right from the 2012 onwards. Okay, as all of us know, I think we have a galaxy of people who would be talking in this panel discussion, and I would first of all like to welcome our panelist, Dr. Mark Meekan, Senior Principal Scientist, Australian Institute of Marine Science, Australia, Dr. Rachel Graham, Founder and Executive Director, Mar Alliance Belize. Thank you very much, Rachel. I think it's almost midnight for you, and you are still there for this great event. Dr. Simon Pierce, co-founder, principal scientist, Marine Megafauna Foundation from Mozambique. Mr. Rahul Pandey, IFS, Chief Conservator of Forest, Andhra Pradesh Forest Department. Welcome, Rahul, for this event. And Dr. K.K. Binis, Scientist D from the Zoological Survey of India and a member of the IUCN SARC Specialist Group. Welcome, Binis, to this panel discussion. Before we go to the panel discussion, on which the topic today is opportunities and challenges in whale shark conservation, I think since our panelists come from different areas, at least two of our panelists from the Indian coastline, one the Zoological Survey of India practically works on the entire coastline of India, and Rahul Pandey is representing the state of Andhra Pradesh, which has a little over 1,000 kilometers of coastline on the east coast of India. And our international panelist, as I have already told you, comes from places like Australia, Belize, and Mozambique. So I think we have people representing from different parts of the world, and from the Indian state situation. We have already heard some people in the opening session talking about their experiences in Gujarat, experiences in Kerala, experiences in corporate social responsibility through the Tata Chemical, and our Chief Executive Vivek Menon gave an overview of how this project began and how it is performing in this country called India. I think India, as you all know, has two large marine ecosystems, the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, and two Bay Islands, the Andaman Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep group of islands. So when we look into the efforts of the Wildlife Trust of India, where we have been working to save this gentle giant, our efforts, I would say, cover just about 40% of the area. We are in the state of Gujarat, we are in the state of Kerala. We have done some work in Lakshadweep. We are getting into the state of Andhra Pradesh, but there are still a larger area left with. We have done a traditional ecological knowledge-based survey of the entire coastline of the mainland at Lakshadweep, but our area which still remains unexplored is the Andaman Nicobar Islands. And if Andaman Nicobar Island is explored for the presence and the status of the whale shark, then practically we have covered the entire system as far as the two large marine ecosystems are concerned. Before I start inviting our panelists, because the timing given was 11 o'clock, and I thought I would talk a little bit about the whale shark. Whale shark is not a whale, but a shark. The largest fish living on the planet. Maybe we should call it a wark on a lighter vein. I think the recent assessment done by the IUCN during 2016 by Dr. Simon Pierce, who is our panel member today, was the person behind the assessment along with Dr. Brad Norman. And they evaluated that the whale shark population is declining, and hence they upgraded the status to the endangered category. From vulnerable, now the species is into the endangered category, in spite of the fact that considerable conservation efforts are going on, not just in India, but across a whole range of the distribution range of the species. Globally, the whale sharks are facing grave threats, as you have already heard from earlier speakers, from incidental capture in the fishing, marine fishing, shipping operation, navigation, noise pollution, and so on, unregulated tourism, and mainly pollution. And as far as the pollution is concerned, the pollution from many different kinds, oil pollution, organic pollution, other kinds of pollution in the sea. And the current population is perhaps only in some thousands, perhaps about 100,000 or so. Being a filter feeder, whale sharks are very much affected by the ocean pollution, particularly plastic pollution, as our speaker, Mr. Surendran, has very politely pointed out. And as Vivek Menon has already mentioned in his inaugural session, the Wildlife Trust of India, having identified the importance of this megafauna and had initiated the whale shark conservation project almost about 15 to 16 years ago. And to this day, this is probably one of the major project on the marine and coastal and marine environment of the country. And thanks to the Gujarat Forest Department, thanks to the Tata Chemical, and thanks to our committed team of field personnel who are taking every effort that is possible in their might to do everything possible to keep the fishing folk communities and our scientific team on the same wavelength so that the conservation program goes on smoothly. Some of the key achievement of the project is since 2004, without even stopping the project for 1 year, the project has been operational till now. That's about 17th years of its operation along the coast of Gujarat. Along the coast of Kerala, we have been working for the last couple of years. And for last couple of years, we have been working also in the coast of Lakshadweep Island. And we are moving into the Andhra Pradesh coast, as rightly pointed out. And that is probably one of the reasons we have Mr. Rahul Pandey, the Chief Conservator of Forest from Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, who will be talking to us in the panel. This was one of the most successful conservation projects for the conservation of marine megafauna in the country, perhaps in the Asian region. In the Asian region, we are not aware of any other country doing as much. There has been some efforts of saving the whale shark, net cutting and releasing in Pakistan a few years ago, and some such efforts are going on in Bangladesh as well. This conservation success was achieved with the full support of the fishing community and perhaps some iconic persons, as Vivek has rightly pointed out in the inaugural address, the Morari Bapuji, who actually catalyzed the success of this project. 7 coastal cities in Gujarat, including a non-coastal city, Ahmedabad, have adopted the whale shark as their city mascot. Gujarat is also probably the only state in the country to have a very specific Gujarat Whale Shark Day. We celebrate the International Whale Shark Day, but Gujarat is the state which celebrates a Gujarat Whale Shark Day, and that is according to the lunar calendar, Kartik Vad Amavasya, which is celebrated as the Gujarat Whale Shark Day, normally sometime around October, November. And since 2004, no report of intentional whale shark killing or hunting is reported in the state of Gujarat. So I think, 16 years of no intentional killing. Incidental capture, of course, does happen, and they cut the net and release, and 781 releases have already been pointed out to you people. But the project team till date has released 787, and maybe as Sanjay Srivastavaji rightly pointed out, sometimes the fishermen don't even come to ask for the net damage. They simply cut the net and let it go. So the 787 is probably a figure which is much lower than the actual number of whale sharks which has been entangled in the fishing nets and then released. For this, the Gujarat Forest Department has provided compensation to the fishers for their fishing net. It's about 100,000, about 1 crore of rupees has probably been compensated to the fisher folk. The project has won the Biodiversity Award, India Biodiversity Award by the UNDP for the conservation of whale shark under the co-management category in 2014. The project has also won the Green Governance Award by the Bombay Natural History Society in the 2005. We also take the credit, the WTI also takes the credit of initiating the first ever satellite tracking of whale sharks in the Indian subcontinent, and also molecular studies to understand the genetic makeup. The whale shark conservation project in Gujarat, since its inception from 2004, has sensitized a little over 20,000 fishers and around 50 to 60,000 students through campaign awareness drives. The life-size whale shark inflatable has probably traveled across the entire coastline of Gujarat, and in recent times, it has also moved along the coast of Andhra Pradesh. The project team, with active support of fishers, have identified whale shark neonates, as Vivek told in his inaugural thing, from the Gujarat waters, confirming the prophecy of Morari Bapu. The WTI has also joined hands with IUCN and the East Godavari Research and Environmental Education Foundation, Andhra Pradesh, and have completed the whale shark distribution survey all along the India's coastline. And based on these TEK, traditional ecological knowledge-based surveys of the fishermen, we have identified 5 new whale shark aggregation sites along the coast of India. And with information provided from the fishermen, we would probably be working in the future in all the 5 aggregating areas of the whale sharks along the coast of India, east coast and west coast. During 2017, the Wildlife Trust of India initiated the whale shark conservation project along Kerala and Lakshadweep with the support of Cochin Shipyard Limited and the Lakshadweep Forest Department. So we are constantly trying to bring in new partners into the conservation initiative, not just the Tata Chemical, but there are different organizations, different corporate houses are joining their hands to save this gentle giant. During the last CMS COP held in Gandhinagar, Gujarat, the Wildlife Trust of India has signed an MOU with the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department for the conservation of the whale shark along the Andhra Pradesh coast. And hopefully, in the years to come by, we will have a presence of the WTI's project on the east coast of India as well. The whale shark conservation project is a unique example of how communities, corporates, governments, and non-governments can jointly work and bring conservation success to a species, to not just possibly whale shark, but a whole lot of other marine megafauna, which is in need of a conservation initiative. Okay, that's largely my introductory talk about the whale shark and the opportunities and challenges in whale shark conservation. I think, as far as the India's coastline is concerned, we have more opportunities. The challenges are there to some extent, educating the fisher folks. India has a huge number of fisher folks along India's coastline, perhaps about 3 million fisher folks, and educating 3 million fisher folks and translating the Gujarat model into every India's coastline is probably the challenge, but it is also an opportunity to move from the Gujarat coast in the west coast of India to the east coast of India and to the islands as far as India is concerned. Coming back to our panelists, I think, we will start with Dr. Rachel Graham. I think, rightly so, because for her, it's almost midnight. And I would welcome Dr. Rachel Graham, who is from Belize. She has won the Whitley Fund for Nature Gold Award for her work with sharks and communities. Rachel has dedicated the past 2 decades to community-based research and conservation of apex marine predators, and her research and work has led to several conservation win-win situations. She is the founder and executive director of Mar Alliance, to promote impactful and inclusive grassroots science and conservation of marine wildlife. She is an active member of the IUCN Shark Specialist Group. And today, I think she is probably making an effort to keep her eyes open so that all of us with open eyes and open ears can hear what she has to say on these challenges and opportunities for whale shark conservation, not just in her area, but in the distribution range of these species across the world. Over to Rachel.
Hello and good evening. Actually, I can say good morning to everybody because we really are, it is the morning. We're actually fast approaching 1 o'clock. I'm actually in Panama at the moment. So I moved over from Belize to Panama, and yes, we have quite a few whale sharks on this side of Central America as well. A lot to be said there. I really want to, first of all, say thank you very much to Dr. Vivek Menon for hosting this gathering again, and to you, Professor Chowdhury, for moderating the panel, and to everybody who is actually present, and my co-panelists as well. It's just lovely to see everybody and so many familiar faces after all of these years. And for those who might not know, I got to meet Vivek Menon the first time in 2008, and I think I even handed you my baby to hold because I just had a baby in 2008, and we were in the whale shark conference in Mexico, and I was trying to juggle motherhood with talks on whale sharks. So that is how we got to know each other at the start. So I do want to touch on, very quickly what you did say, Professor Chowdhury, about the fact that you're using traditional ecological knowledge in questionnaire surveys in order to identify more sites. That's a lot of the work that we're doing, and with whale sharks and a range of other species. And it's really heartening to see that you do actually have a lot of other aggregations cropping up that you're going to be able to study and be able to look at the connectivity between all of these. So that is one great example of some really nice opportunities that have cropped up recently amidst a sea of what seems to be, I'd say a bit of difficult news. Literally, as you were all talking, I was actually being pinged on my phone by several fishermen I work with in different countries in Central America. And the last one who just talked to me was one that I've worked with in the whale shark zone in Mexico, exactly where I met Vivek. And I would say, as a summary of what I'd like to be able to share with everybody today, are kind of some of the impacts that have happened, not only to whale sharks, but also to human communities that depend on whale sharks, and also some of the opportunities that we have for whale sharks and again for people. And so I'm going to start with the whale sharks. Huge opportunities right now because of COVID-19. Because of COVID-19 in my area, in Western Central Caribbean, Cuba, Mexico, Panama, Honduras, where we do have aggregations of whale sharks, we have a real decrease not only in shipping, but we also have a very big decrease in fishing, which there can be some entanglements of whale sharks. There's no dedicated fisheries, but there's also a decrease in tourism. And so that means that we have many fewer potential boat strikes. In Mexico, folks here might not know, but there were at least a third of whale sharks that were identified by Dr. Denny Ramirez, a colleague from Mexico, had evidence of boat strikes on them. My colleagues in Mexico have just informed me that the tourism is down to unprecedented levels. And in fact, it's closed in Belize, it's closed in Cuba, it's closed in Honduras, it's even closed in Panama. So these animals are finally able to catch a break. And what we're also seeing is we're seeing some big changes in the makeup, the size makeup of the animals that are being seen, which is unusual because normally in many of these aggregations, you see 6-meter animals, 7-meter animals, but now they're starting to see 10+ meter animals. Could it be that with the reduction of human or anthropogenic impacts and visitation, you're actually starting to see some of the larger animals coming in, which would potentially reverse some of the thinking that we have in terms of the size decline of whale sharks overall. So I think those are some of the really neat opportunities that are coming up for whale sharks. What I am seeing, though, is in some cases, some potential impacts. We've seen some recent evidence of large massing of boats near the border of Ecuador and the Galapagos. Very worrisome. Asian known shark fishing boats. And there is often either targeted or bycatch fisheries for whale sharks, because fins do actually fetch quite a lot of money. And also more recent evidence, and Simon can also probably mention or talk about this a little bit more, we seem to have evidence of captures and finning of whale sharks in Venezuela. And that could be also due to the very difficult economic situation that many of the coastal communities find themselves in northern Latin America. And so from great opportunities for whale sharks to finally catch a break from shipping and tourism, a few impacts in some of the areas with potentially unregulated fisheries, we also are seeing some big impacts on human communities that have, in many cases, oriented a lot of their economies towards whale shark tourism. And these are communities that are now suffering greatly. They've put in a lot of money to be able to develop their whale shark tourism. They're now suffering from no visitation. They have no alternatives. Some of them have gone back to fishing, but things are very tough for them indeed. And I won't comment on climate change. I'm sure that Mark will probably want to talk to you a little bit about that. But I will say that we are definitely seeing some greater movement of whale sharks in the Atlantic, and potentially due to changes in temperature of the water. More recently, I don't know if you saw in the news, whale shark was even seen in Cape Cod in Connecticut in waters 20-22 degrees. And they're very, very rarely sighted in such northerly waters. So we're already seeing shifts and changes in temperatures and distributional patterns of whale sharks. So lots of opportunities for both them and their human communities, but also a fair few impacts, and especially on people.
Okay, very nice, Rachel. I think, what I would also like to request you to talk about is how good is the whale shark tourism in terms of livelihood opportunities for fisher folks, because as far as the India's coastline is concerned, tourism doesn't seem to be a possibility on the west coast and east coast because of the turbidity of the water and not such large aggregations being seen together. But a possibility might exist in the Lakshadweep group of islands where if you don't see a whale shark, you might actually see a blue whale or some other whale species. You might see even marine turtles, if nothing else. So you won't come back without seeing anything. This is one question which people often say, tourism on the marine environment is probably a pleasure boat trip rather than seeing a megafauna in the marine environment. That has been the critique of the tourism on the marine environment. Since we have been associated with the tourism involving whale shark and other marine megafauna, I would request you to delve on this a little bit and tell us in what direction, if at all something in this direction moves in India, how do we move about?
And I think you raise a really good point, because throughout all the range countries where whale sharks are found, not all of them are going to be appropriate for tourism. And you're absolutely right. Off the coast of India, the waters are more like chocolate milk, and so it would be very difficult to actually have a really special experience of the whale shark in water. And this is why I'm absolutely thrilled to hear about the importance of the existence of whale sharks to fishers based on the very long-term work that you've done to raise awareness for them, and also to tie into religious value. And so I do have a question for you that I would pose, which is how much do you think it's the existence value of the whale shark, or is it the religious value and basically doing the right thing per the religious leaders in letting those whale sharks go? So I'll just park that question for you in 1 second. And just to answer, I think that you're not going to have many opportunities on the touristic side in the turbid waters in India. And so that focus on existential value and religious tie-in is critical. In the Lakshadweeps, absolutely. If you have a predictable aggregation, and this is what's really important. So some of your science can start to focus on determining how predictable that aggregation might be. And that would be very useful. And that's something that I remember I started off in 1999 in Belize, is to look specifically at the predictability of whale shark aggregation there in order to see whether it could provide an economic offset for traditional fishers. And with the scientific information that I was able to gather, I was able to say, yes, you could potentially have an income by taking people out to see the whale sharks, to swim with them, etc. And we can pull you away from the more destructive fisheries on fish spawning aggregations. It's like basically taking the savings out of your bank account. So you really don't want to do that. You want to leave those fish in the water. That worked very well. But again, that's in clear, warm waters. It would be very similar to Lakshadweep. So it sounds like you're going to need to do some basic investigation there. And my only suggestion is, if you do have a predictable whale shark site, never promise whale sharks. So when you form the guides and you work with fishers, you absolutely never promise. You promise salt water and a great experience, and focus on the service that is delivered, and potentially seeing marine fauna without any one focus on marine megafauna. And I suggest that after many years of working with many guides and the tourism sectors in many countries. And then, so I'm going back to the question that I had parked with you, which is existential value or religious value. What is it that's really making fishers release the sharks from the net?
It's a mix of both. I would say it's a mix of both. I think, see, no part of coast of India, people have no belief that, marine fauna are associated with gods and goddesses. In the Indian pantheon, there are supposed to be 33,000 gods and goddesses. And every god and goddess has what they call a carrier, I think, associated with an animal. I think, so there are several. I think, the Gangetic dolphin is supposed to be a carrier of one particular god. So similarly, every single animal is associated with, the god of wealth, Kuber, that's the god of wealth in the sea. I think, the god of wealth is associated with the marine environment. So I think, it's probably a combination of both the belief of existential value as well as the religious value. I think both are working together. But sometime, I think, as you rightly pointed out in your case, I think, as the tourism opportunities are diminishing, the people have gone back again to the fishing and other such activities. So I think, a tourism-linked economy is not necessarily a predictable economy. And that is what happens, particularly in this pandemic time. It's probably more so. And I think, we haven't seen that happening in the India's coastline. I think even during the pandemic time, our partner fisher folks not only have found whale shark pups, but they have also released whale shark. But while also saying so, we have also seen whale sharks having been killed on the Goa coast, whale sharks having been killed in the Bombay coast. So I think, it's a mix of both. I think, sometime the fins have been taken out. So people probably are looking at it as an opportunity. The tourism or any other source of earning money is not there. So maybe the fin is the last answer to earn a few dollars. So I think, it's probably both, but these are challenges, I think particularly challenges during the pandemic situation where the presence of staff, protection staff in the field is probably much less than normally one would see that. So I think, I'll probably get back to you at a little later, but let me now invite Mr. Rahul Pandey, the Chief Conservator of Forest, Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, because we are still waiting to hear from presence of Mark Macon and Simon Pierce. So I will now invite Mr. Rahul Pandey, Indian Forest Service. Rahul has been a former diploma holder from the Advanced Wildlife Management course in the Wildlife Institute of India. But Rahul has worn many caps. Rahul has been running the Project Tiger in the undivided state of Andhra Pradesh. He has been running the Project Tiger in the divided state of Andhra Pradesh and the present coastal state of Andhra Pradesh. And as far as I remember, ever since he has gone into the forest department, almost 80% of his time has been with the wildlife management. May it be terrestrial wildlife management, may it be aquatic wildlife management. He has been moving into wildlife management scenario like his elder brother in the state of Himachal Pradesh. So over to Rahul. And again, Rahul, I would like to request you to delve on the subject of what are the opportunities and what are the challenges for whale shark conservation in the maritime state of Andhra Pradesh. Over to Rahul.
Sir, thanks a lot. So, very good morning to esteemed panelists and all the participants who are attending this webinar, and wish you all a happy International Whale Day in advance. So I'm attending on behalf of Government of Andhra Pradesh with my younger colleague, Mr. Selvam, who's sitting next to me, and he's additional CEO for IGRI Foundation, who has worked considerably in this aspect of conservation of whale shark also. So many of the panelists, they don't know much about Andhra Pradesh. So I just share in 1 minute about the wildlife of Andhra Pradesh, and then I will be talking about the opportunities and challenges in the whale shark conservation. Andhra Pradesh is having 37,258 square kilometer forest area, and out of which 8,140 square kilometer area, it is under protected area network. We are having 3 national parks, 11 wildlife sanctuaries, and 1 biosphere reserve, that is Seshachalam Biosphere Reserve. We have the largest tiger reserve of the country, which is Nagarjun Sagar Srisalam Tiger Reserve, and I was also fortunate enough to administer it for about 4 years. We are having, if we are talk about the XC2 conservation, we are having 2 zoos, and BC sir is associated with Vizag Zoo, and earlier we remember always is associated with Hyderabad Zoo when before reorganization of the state. And I would like to say 980 kilometer long coastline. So today's our focus is on the 980 kilometers long coastline of Andhra Pradesh, which is the 2nd largest in our country. Whale shark is the largest surviving marine fish found throughout the tropics except Mediterranean Sea. Forest Department of Andhra Pradesh has started working towards the conservation of whale shark in the year 2015 and 16. We got a UNDP funded IGRI project, and it has been done by the government of Andhra Pradesh. A survey was carried out by Wildlife Trust of India, and BC sir was, must be remembering, who was very well associated with their entire survey. So it was done, so it started all in 2015-16. So the traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous technical knowledge of fisher folks of the state was used by the project team to understand the distribution trend of whale shark and to evolve a plan basically to conserve the whale sharks on Andhra coast. A total of 650 interviews were being conducted, which include fisher folks and representatives of scientific and professional organizations. So it was a very big exercise. So we have a very, very long coastline of 980 kilometers, and it has been carried out in, we are having 9 coastal districts. It has been carried out in the 8 coastal district except West Godavari. So the survey was carried out in 5 phases from October 2015 to 2016. It has been published by the Wildlife Trust of India in coordination with IGRI Foundation. IGRI Foundation, I would like to share that I was fortunate enough for a brief period of 5 months. I worked as Chief Executive Officer for IGRI Foundation also. The whale shark is known to occur in the waters of over 130 countries, and whale sharks are generally of limited value to fisheries. But however, there was an increase in demand that was mostly in the Southeast Asian countries, and because of it led to an increase in the target catch of the species in many countries, which includes India also. Artisanal fishing for whale shark has existed in a number of countries, which includes India also. So we can talk about the legal status of all the species. So has been covered under CITES. It has been covered under Convention for Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. It has been included in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, as well as the Convention on the Biological Diversity. And if we talk about Indian scenario, so it has been included as Schedule 1 species under Wildlife Protection Act of India 1972, and it was included in the May 2001. So it tells that how much importance has been given by Government of India and state government, which has been carrying out most of the studies basically to see the distribution, past distribution, present distribution, its aggregations, and basically with all the data and survey to form a strategy to how to conserve this beautiful giant of the sea. So whale sharks are found in the tropical seas, and temperatures varies from 28 to 30 degree. And it has been reported in all the maritime states of India. So whale sharks are highly mobile fish species, spending most of their lives out of reach of the humans. So most of our data, basically, it is because of traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous technical knowledge of the fisher folk. Making any long-term observation of the behavior in the wild is very, very difficult and it's going to be very, very expensive also. So our fisher folks across the world with their traditional ecological knowledge do have a fairly adequate indigenous technical knowledge about whale shark in marine environment. So Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, in consultation with the Wildlife Trust of India and IGRI Foundation, used the TAK and ITK of the fisher folk to understand the past and the present status of whale shark, their aggregation hotspots, and other aspects like impact of fishing and other threats in the coastal Andhra Pradesh. I mentioned earlier also, we have the second longest coastline in the country. It is 980 kilometers long. The study and detailed survey was carried out, and basically the objectives were to understand whale shark distribution and range of threats which the species it faces, to analyze present and past distribution trend of whale shark on the Andhra coast, all along the Andhra Pradesh coast, and based on the information generated by the above these two factors, to make a conservation strategy and action plan for implementation all along the Andhra coast. So survey have been carried out. Some basic stats I will share here. There are 555 marine fishing villages in Andhra Pradesh with 163,427 fisher folks families, and 98.5% of these fisher folk, they do the traditional fishing. Total number of landing stations, if we see in Andhra Pradesh, it is 353. So it has been documented in the report, which has been in the survey report, which has been brought out by the IGRI Foundation and Wildlife Trust of India in 2015-16. Literature was reviewed. Consultation took place with the professionals and various organizations. It is Andhra University. It is a certain organization like Government of India organization we have on fisheries in Visakhapatnam. So all the stakeholders came together, Wildlife Trust of India, IGRI, and the entire data was being collected. This traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous technical knowledge based survey questionnaires were being developed. Surveys at the landing sites and questionnaire survey were being carried out. Data was collected and the following observations have been made. So most of our data, basically, it's from the landing sites. On the basis these interviews, whale shark sighting was found highest in the offshore waters of East Godavari, Krishna, and Guntur district. So, and we it's a pleasure to share with all of you that we have two delta areas, delta of Krishna River and delta of the Godavari River, we are having very good mangrove forest. So it is the second largest mangrove patches in India after Sundarbans. So that area, very good aggregation has been noticed. Whale sharks are largely their planktonic feeder, and their seasonal feeding aggregations are largely associated with the productive areas. The nutrition loaded in the waters of Kuringa and Krishna mangroves clubbed with the coastal upwelling is hypothesized to be making the offshore water of these three districts nutrient rich and a perfect place for aggregation. Whale shark landing records from East Godavari region collected by IGRI Foundation and Wildlife Trust of India has reported 79 landings during 2000 to 2015 that support this hypothesis. It was clear from the survey that fishermen were having a lot of questions have been provided. So whether people are aware about the legal aspects of the species or not, and most of them, they were knowing about that it is Schedule 1 species under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The main threat to the survival of whale shark was the incident. What has been documented is incidental catch. Whale shark products are still available in international markets, and serious injury and mortalities because of vessel strike. And the main reason in our coast, because we don't have much tourism related issues in our coast, because water is very, very turbulent, at least in the Andhra side of the sea. So it's a turbulent water, so we don't have much sea side tourism. So the reason is mostly fishing as well as incidental accidents. Another aspect is the main threat to the whale sharks are confirmed mainly incidental captures and this thing. As per available data, entanglement in gill nets is the primary cause of whale shark mortality on Andhra coast. We have carried out a survey. It shows the main threat and survival strategy when we were trying to bring out the survival strategy. So finally, we can say the two main threats were, number one, that was incidental catch, and number two, basically the accident with the collision with the ramming into the boats. A total of 650 interviews also have been taken in 84 fishing villages during October 2015 to April 2016. As per the survey, the shark sighting was highest in East Godavari district, 66%, and the lowest it was in Nellore district, which is about 20%. So it shows clearly that wherever those mangroves area are there, wherever the forests are these marine systems are quite rich, those areas are having better aggregation of whale shark. The present survey has given considerable information about the status of whale shark in Andhra Pradesh coast, which is one of the largest marine ecosystem of the world. So we have involved most of the stakeholders. They were the fishermen, they were the NGOs. It's IGRI Foundation under Government of India, UNDP, and awareness campaigns. Everything has been done basically to protect the to conserve the whale sharks. So a recovery plan was also being made, but many short-term action already has been taken by the forest department. So a lot of awareness programs have been created, and we are trying to have now onwards, we will totally focus on it, that we have very good this landing stations, that we have our say to landing stations, and we can see that how we can address the issue of this incidental catches. I just shared with my younger colleagues, is given a figure that so far only one case has come in which this animal has been released from the net, and compensation has been paid to the concerned fisher folk. What I would like to share here, because we are looking other species also, so we are disbursing in crores of rupees compensation towards elephant issue. So there is no reason that we cannot meet this requirement also. So we will take up as a challenge. We will have the meetings of the stakeholders, and we will create a lot of awareness that if any incidental catch is there, then we will release the animal to the sea, and it will be compensated by the department. It will be our commitment, and that we commit on this International Day for whale shark conservation, creation of some infrastructure also at the landing station where as per this survey report, though we are having more than 350 landing stations, so we like to have wherever the more number of animals or we can say the whale sharks have landed, we like to have our presence of our staff so that we get the information and we can take a prompt action so that animal can be released back to the waters. Why it is basically the animal has been it's mentioned in the schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So we have enforcement tool also, but first and foremost, it's more like awareness creation and to involve all stakeholders toward conservation of the whale sharks. So involvement of the NGOs and other conservation and research organization in this process. So already MOU has been signed with Wildlife Trust of India, and we look forward to work together and so that we can protect these beautiful giants of the sea. There could be some long-term actions also, but for that we require a lot of funding support. So in-depth scientific research, satellite tagging can give information about their movement, growth, and size at the first maturity and longevity, etc. Like just in the previous session, we had interaction with this CSR expert from Tata Chemicals. In Andhra Pradesh also, we are having number of projects in which corporates are helping us, and one of the most successful project is this conservation breeding of olive-ridley turtles. So more than 30 lakh turtles we have released into the sea for last 4 years, and it is totally supported by the corporates, NTPC, and many other public sector undertakings. So we will look forward. Basically, it's one sector where all of us have to come together, whether it's the government, whether it is the NGOs, whether it's the knowledge partners, fishermen folk, fishermen associations, and fisheries department. Then only we can conserve this gentle giant of the sea. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to get back to you, Rahul. You just said, in Andhra Pradesh, you have taken a leap forward with the corporate social responsibility support, as far as the marine turtles are concerned. Now that you have signed an MOU with the WTI to start work on the gentle giant, the whale shark, are you contemplating to rope in a corporate social responsibility support from a corporate house for this project as well?
So definitely we are looking forward, and suppose if in Vizag Coast and Rajahmundry, so a lot of public sector undertakings are also there, whether it is NTPC or Visakhapatnam Port Trust is there, and if we see this Visakhapatnam steel plant is there. So people are coming forward, sir. I feel that we may be able to rope corporates for this particular activity. And basically, even people have come forward for the collaring of some wild elephants also in Kondinya Sanctuary. So it has been tied up with them, and we got a support of about 80 lakhs, and Ministry has already permitted us. So they will be collared with the technical help of the Wildlife Institute of India. So far, sir, I honestly accept that we have not put so much effort on it. Definitely, we'll put effort on it, and there is no reason that we cannot have partners. Like many of the industrialists we know well, sir. So, and as per the norms also, so 3% of the profit, if they are making it's more than 500 or 1,000, there's a clause in that. So that much has to be spent on corporate social responsibility. So definitely people will come forward. We'll work on it.
Okay. So there is an opportunity which we are looking forward for the opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Rahul. I think, once the session is over, then maybe we can get back to you. I would now like to invite Dr. Mark Meakin. Mark Meakin is from Australia, and he's a fish biologist. His research interests fall within the topics, the ecology of larval reef fishes and elasmomonas. He's a member of various conservation and science advisory panel, including Save Our Sea Foundation, Australian Government Department of Environment, Heritage, Water and Arts, National Shark Recovery Group, and Australian Animal Tracking and Monitoring System. So, Mark, I think, I was not aware that, you have already arrived. I know that's why, sequence changed, and I'm sorry about that, but over to you, Mark.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the introduction. Thanks so much to the Wildlife Trust of India for the opportunity to participate in the panel today. Appreciate it. And in the past, to visit India and to see, the projects themselves and how you guys operate, and a fantastic job that you guys have done raising awareness about the state and the plight of the whale shark in India, and really safeguarding the species in India for the future. I think the work that you have done stands as a beacon of light in an otherwise sometimes bleak future for whale sharks and some of the megafauna in our world's oceans. The number of whale sharks that you guys have saved, the change you've made in everyone's attitude to whale sharks, and the way that that has rolled out into conservation prospects for the species in Indian waters is truly a remarkable feat. And I'd just like to say publicly here, what a wonderful job you guys have done. And it really is a world-leading example of what can be done when a group works at the grassroots and understands the concerns and the attitudes of the people they're trying to do a conservation action with. I think it's a truly remarkable example of that. All that good work, though, still doesn't mean that whale sharks are out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. If we look around the world today and ask the question, what are the major threats to whale sharks? Then touching on the same things that Rachel mentioned, it's things such as ship strike and bycatch, and in some cases targeted hunting as well. One of the key issues, I think, is ship strike and quantifying that in a realistic way. We get an idea of just how bad that problem might be by simply looking at the scarring patterns on whale sharks and many of the aggregations around the world. And around, on average, about somewhere between 25 to 30% of the sharks attending those aggregations have some form of propeller damage on them. And the problem there is that whale sharks are negatively buoyant. So if they're not swimming, they sink. And if they're hit by a ship and killed, they sink. This isn't like, for example, cetaceans, many of which essentially float at the ocean's surface, and so we can see the impacts of ship strikes and the like. So many of these animals, so the point being that although we may only see 25% of them scarred, we have those are just the animals that survived the encounter with a large ship, and not necessarily the animals were killed. But so we don't really have a very good idea of just how many animals are actually killed by ship strikes. Given that ship strikes have been recorded really since steamers first started traveling the world's oceans in the mid-1800s, late 1800s, it's likely to be a very significant part of the mortality of whale sharks. And for example, of the 60 odd tags we put out, pat tags and splash tags we put out various times at Ningaloo, at least we're convinced at least 2 of those animals were probably victims of ship strike. And so what's being called with COVID-19 an anthropause, a pause in the activity of humans around the world's oceans. It's very interesting to see maybe some reactions from sharks in what's going on to that, and to the lowering of shipping rates and the like, and activity in the world's coastal oceans. So very interested to hear from Rachel about that, and the fact that that may be having some effect on behaviours of whale sharks. So COVID-19 does in fact offer us quite a good opportunity to actually see what the day-to-day effects, at least on the behaviour and perhaps distribution of whale sharks, are in the world's oceans. The other big issues, of course, are climate change. With whale sharks are very much the Goldilocks species. They like water temperatures that aren't too hot and aren't too cold, that are just right in the middle. And the extent of those temperatures has been shifting away from the equator with climate change, and likely to shift fairly rapidly in the future. What effect that may have on whale sharks is not really known. But it does offer the opportunity for prediction with some of the students, Anna Sakira, for example, she's now a Pew Fellow at UWA, looking at the likely effects of those of climate change to the future. Interestingly, Rachel mentioned the sighting of a whale shark in Cape Cod. It's not the first time, actually. It turns out that whale sharks have been seen in the Bay of Fundy, so even further north in Cape Cod. At least one record of them. So there are some pretty wacky whale shark individuals out there that do tend to get about. And even the tracking we've done, one of the things we've found with very strong La Nina years, when the currents along the West Australian coast are very strong and flowing southward, we'll get whale sharks down in places like Albany and Esperance, which is on the cool, temperate coast of Western Australia. So they do get around, these sharks, much more so, I think, than latitudinally up and down than we've suspected in the past. To come back to some more specific points about the opportunities in India, I think there's a real opportunity here. Although the opportunities for ecotourism may not be what they are in other countries where there's deep water, clear water close to the coast, except for perhaps in a place like the Lac Chadwicks. There are absolutely massive opportunities for tagging and for some great science in the Indian situation. What's happened over the last few years is that our tagging efforts have got so much better. We're working with Conservation International in West Papua and in other places in Indonesia, where they have the technology now putting on tags in these animals that last for well over a year, and even recovering some of those tags. So what happens in these places is that the whale sharks in Cendrawasih Bay and a couple of other places in Flores in Indonesia, they're attracted into shore where by lights at night. Fishermen are using lights at night to fish, and they're caught in these big nets called bargain nets. What's happening is the researchers are getting in the water and they're actually bolting these tags to the fins of the whale shark. Now that doesn't harm the whale sharks too much, or at least they seem to recover from it fine. But those tags are giving some very, very long tracks now, years. And because those sharks are coming back to the same place, those tags can also, those same sharks can be recaught sometimes, and the tags removed, and the data archives inside those tags are immensely valuable. They're a huge opportunity for a greater understanding of what whale sharks are actually doing, both where they're going and their ecology and the oceanographic processes that affect their movements. So we're analysing some of those tags. We've got at least 12 recovered tags now, and they're a real goldmine for actual data sets and understanding where these whale sharks are going. So I think we need, one of the key opportunities as I see it is to actually use the interaction that's happening with the nets on the and the fishermen off the Indian coast to actually start attaching some tags in a different way, that is bolting them to the fin, that may produce much more protracted, longer migration patterns that allow us to understand where these animals are going and what they're doing while they're at sea. Plus the fact that these animals are probably returning to the same waters, there is also some chance that you may see the same animals again and actually be able to remove the tag off the animal. And that, in that case, the tag is a real goldmine, because the high resolution detailed archives of what the animal's been doing in terms of depth and temperature and other variables are then available. So I think there's some really huge immediate opportunities that we could avail ourselves of scientifically for the animals in India. Even if there aren't really same sorts of opportunities for ecotourism because of the murkiness, essentially, the turbidity in coastal waters around India. So that's one thing I'd really like to see happen. I think that the tagging program, we're analysing some of those tags now with a student and in collaboration with Sajan John and everybody else at W2I. We're analysing the toad tags that they've provided, the data from those. It shows that these animals are going south towards the equator and wandering around in a convergence area there, much as you might have predicted. That seems to be what they do in other places around the world too. They head to these sort of convergence zones of currents. And then heading back up to India again, but getting the long-term tracks off those animals and seeing where they're interacting with is a key thing, and for a very simple reason. If the animals are going around the Indian Ocean down to the equator and then back up to India again, that presents one form of problems for conservation. If the animals are going across the Indian Ocean, say, to the coast of Somalia or through the Arabian Sea in the northeast there, that presents a completely different suite of conservation challenges. So it would be good to know from the, accessing the best sort of tagging technology, what the size of the problem you're actually dealing with in terms of conservation. So I think those are some of the key things that are really opportunities and both threats for the animal as we see it now. So mindful of the time for the panel's got left and not wanting to run Simon into too small of a corner there, I'll pass it back to back to you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I think thanks for pointing out the opportunities as far as tagging is concerned in Indian waters, particularly in the Indian Ocean. I think we will probably get back at the concluding part of this panel discussion back again, if time permits. I would now like to invite Dr. Simon. Simon is from New Zealand. He's the co-founder and principal scientist at the Marine Megafauna Foundation, where he leads the Global Whale Shark Research Conservation Program. Simon led the global conservation assessment of the whale shark of the IUCN Red List in 2016, which identified the species as endangered. Then led the technical proposal that successfully uplisted the whale shark to Appendix 1 of the UN Convention on Migratory Species in 2017. So I think you are doing a yeoman service and making the assessment of the species status, as far as where it should remain in the Red List and in other areas. Over to Simon. I think what opportunities exist and what kind of challenges you face in your region and any other part of the world, which can be addressed, including India.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for having me, and it's fantastic to hear firsthand about all the great conservation work and ongoing research that's going on in India, just following on from what Mark said as well. Like, it really is a pretty amazing project that's going on over there, and really encouraging for a pretty vital place for whale sharks. Thanks very much for the introduction. Yeah, I actually see the conservation assessment for whale sharks as, given that they are now an endangered species, and when we were working through all the sighting data and things that's been collected, unfortunately there's often not very much of it for whale sharks, and realizing that the species has probably halved its population since commercial fisheries really started back in the 1980s. It's pretty scary to think that we've lost half the world's whale sharks, like, over the time that I've been alive. But at the same time, that does actually present an opportunity for conservation too, because I mean, they were endangered before that assessment, but we just didn't know. And that has given us the opportunity to, well, things like the Convention on Migratory Species, as you mentioned, followed on directly from that assessment. So there are some really good opportunities for whale shark conservation, you're right in that they are one of the best protected in terms of global and national legislation now, sharks in the world. So following on from that, I think one of the key things, especially with the Convention on Migratory Species Protection, is making sure that countries do follow through and make sure they are effectively protected in their range state. So it's not just a matter of making them a protected species, it's making sure that actually mortalities are being minimized to the extent that's possible, and also some of these habitats are protected effectively as well. Speaking kind of generally about whale sharks, there are a few like research challenges that are very interesting, but also have made effective conservation quite tough as well. So there's, we've been, Rachel introduced that like there's a lot of the coastal areas where whale sharks are often seen are usually dominated by smaller sharks, like often juveniles, as she said, about 6 meters or so. And it's very rare to see sharks of under about 3 meters in most locations, and a lot of places it's pretty uncommon to see sharks over 8 meters or so. And it's really becoming pretty clear, like as time has gone on and new sites have been discovered, and it seems to be a bit of almost a cliche now that most of these sites are kind of dominated by juvenile males. So there's a really interesting habitat shift going on in the species, it seems, and that a lot of the adults are probably out in the open ocean. And so as Mark said, with the opportunity for India there is doing that tagging of some of these larger sharks, especially as they come in, and just seeing it's like, how are they actually using these open ocean habitats, and what threats they might face in those environments as well. But one of the problems we've had with that then is that most of the monitoring work that we've been able to do has been in these coastal areas where it's mostly juvenile male sharks. And those are the least important part of the population in terms of population recovery, because they're not the, you know, we need to know where these sort of larger juveniles and adult females are that are the immediate breeders that can help the population recover. So monitoring has been a real challenge for them. And most, like some of the work we've been doing in Mozambique, for instance, that we used a lot of that information in things like the red list assessment. I mean, we've seen very steep declines in sightings over there, but as Mark was saying, as we've got changing environmental conditions, we're seeing a real redistribution of sharks as well. So it's very hard to disentangle like a true population decline from sharks just being shifted around due to changing environments. And I mean, these are fish that can control their own environment. They can easily swim sort of 10,000 kilometers plus a year. So if they don't like where they are, they can move quite quickly to somewhere else where the environmental conditions are more favorable for them. So it makes it really tough to know sometimes, like over in the Western Indian Ocean, for instance, we've seen very steep declines in sightings in places like Mozambique and the Seychelles as well, where they used to be commonly seeing sharks, and it's pretty uncommon to see them now. But there's some increasing sightings, it looks like, in places like Northwest Madagascar. And the thing is, it doesn't seem to be the same sharks. So probably out there in the open ocean, like there's quite a few of these sharks that are actually mixing together, but it's so hard to actually study them out there. So having the opportunity to sort of access, especially these larger sharks, is a really important, a really useful opportunity, not just for India, but for the world, I think, to learn more about what they're doing, these larger sharks. But also it was really cool to hear that there's a few pups being sighted over there as well. And that's something that's super uncommon with whale sharks. So pretty amazing that it's like continues to be proven to be a sort of a long-term breeding area along that coastline as well. So it makes it even more important to be able to protect the sharks over there. In terms of threats, like I think most of them have really been covered in terms of, like there's been the net fishing, these targeted catches in some places. There's been ongoing problems with vessel strikes, and as Mark said, that's probably a lot bigger a much more significant issue than we necessarily know about, because it's so hard for us to track how many are actually being affected. Something that has only really come onto my radar in the last few years as well is also plastic pollution. And I mean, plastic pollution is a pretty hot topic in marine conservation at the moment, but it certainly does seem to be affecting whale sharks as well. And a colleague of mine did her PhD in Indonesia and one of the feeding areas there of Java. And she estimated that the sharks could be having an intake of about 137 pieces of plastic every hour that they're feeding. So there has been a few mortalities from plastics now recorded in places like Thailand and the Philippines. But as Mark said, I mean, the issue here is that these sharks, they don't float when they die. Unfortunately, they sink. So it's very difficult for us to track. And unless there's a proper sort of autopsy done, then it's going to be quite hard to pick up mortality from plastics as well. So it's definitely something that I think we need to have on our radar, just because, like, with the populations so reduced, some of these more chronic threats could have really hinder their recovery. And I think regardless, like, we've got to be prepared. I'm actually quite optimistic for the future of whale sharks now. I mean, as I said, they are a really well protected species. We've just got to make sure that kind of is followed through on the ground with conservation efforts. But regardless, it's going to take a long time for them to bounce back. Like, if they, some of Mark's recent work showed they might live to 130 years old. They're probably becoming adults at about 40 or so. So they've got a very conservative life history. So yeah, it's good that we've started now, and I think the work that's going on in India can have a huge contribution to that as well.
Thanks very much, Simon. I think, if time permits, we might actually be getting back to you for a small bit. Sure. But let me now invite Dr. Binnis. Binnis is a SARC Specialist Group member. He's with the Zoological Survey of India as a scientist of the Zoological Survey of India in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, which still remains unexplored as far as the whale sharks are concerned. Binnis has almost 12 years of experience on shark research. I'll publish about 120 papers in taxonomy, biogeography, molecular taxonomy, biology of marine fishes, and so on. He is also has the experience of the IUCN red listing assessment, as you do. And he is one of the leading marine fish taxonomists in the world and has described more than 15 teleos fish species to the science. So Binnis, over to you, challenges and opportunities. I think, I would very specifically urge you to steer your talk towards the Andaman Nicobar Islands, extremely important area, which remains a gap area as far as the marine megafaunas are concerned, and particularly with the whale shark is concerned. Over to Binnis.
So I'm Sergeant here. We have lost Binnis, so it's raining heavily at his place, and he have lost the connectivity. So okay. Binnis is not available, sir.
Binnis is not available. Okay. So that kind of fits us into the time frame of up to 12 o'clock. I think 11:59 now. I would like to kind of sum up what our four major panelists did talk about. Rachel said the shift in the capture fisheries in Venezuela, again by the fisher folks, with tourism opportunities becoming low and small.
So
and also, yeah.
Hello. So yeah. We have few questions also for the panelists. So
okay, if someone can.
Would you like to take the questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have the questions with me, sir. So I'll take the questions. So there's a question. Hello, sir. There's a question for Rachel Graham. So the question is about. She already mentioned that there is a shift in whale shark distribution towards a colder region. And she mentioned that is a global concern. So the person wants to know that why it is a concern if it is distributing, if it's kind of spreading into more areas.
So I think some of the work that, like Mark Meekin had mentioned, he does have one of his colleagues who is looking at distribution of whale sharks throughout the world and in relation to climate patterns, so temperature and water temperature and currents, etc. And I would say that if you can have them distribute more widely, fantastic, that's brilliant. I think where you're going to see some real issues is in some of the heat traps, like the Arabian Sea, for example. Then you're probably going to have some real shifts of distribution away from those seas and into the I guess cooler temperatures in northern and southern more latitudes. Now, one of the issues, of course, is what other species are they going to come into contact? I don't know if you know this, but many species prey on whale sharks at different stages of their lives. And this could put them into more contact with a range of other prey species, everything from marlin to tuna to orcas and more. Sorry.
Can you unmute some people? Yeah,
so,
please continue,
so
Raja.
changing the distribution it's not a bad thing, but I think what you're going to see is you're going to see some moves away from areas where, especially where people may have developed their livelihoods around whale shark encounters, etc. And so you're going to see big shifts also away from local thriving economies in coastal communities. And that will be very hard in many countries. And just like you mentioned, I think it's Simon who mentioned that they're barely being seen in Seychelles anymore. They're barely being seen actually even in Belize. And you're seeing reductions in a range of other countries. And so this shift in distribution for climate is also going to mirror a shift in the economies of these coastal countries.
Thank you, Dr. Rachel. We have one question to Mark Millikan. So this question is about from Ms. Narayani. So she would like to know more about the linkages between sea level rise and climate change and whale shark migratory patterns.
Okay, I think Rachel's actually answered that question pretty well in her last answer. So as I said before, whale sharks are very much a Goldilocks species. They like at a particular temperature range, not too hot, not too cold. I think Rachel's highlighted the fact that places like the Red Sea and the Arabian Gulf Persian Gulf are places where it could easily get too hot. I don't know if you can hear me still. It could easily get too hot for these animals to actually, maintain a presence in those places, particularly where the water is shallow, where they've got no option to go deeper to cooler water. And the Persian Gulf would be an example of that. That may be very difficult for them. And we are seeing, I believe, a redistribution of whale sharks happening even in my lifetime. I suspect places like Australia, where you have a long coastline that crosses many latitudes, it's not going to be so much of a problem either for the sharks or for the communities, the tourism communities that depend on them, because they've got a long latitudinal refuge, if you like, a place to go. But for somewhere like the Philippines, Indonesia, the Seychelles, the opportunities simply don't exist. The people literally run out of land, run out of coast for whale sharks, and that'll be a big problem for those communities.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mark. And there's one question for Simon as well. So this is about the plastic pollution, which he was mentioning about. So the question is about largely the filter feeder. The plastic pollution is largely affecting the filter feeders. So what about the other predatory sharks? Is plastic a threat for them as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, part of the plastic is, I think we're still pretty early in our understanding of how it is affecting marine ecosystems. Certainly, like getting away from the ingestion itself. I mean, Some sharks are getting tangled in things like especially some of the looped plastics and things. And I mean, the sharks, they can't really swim backwards. So if they swim into one of these loops, that can lead to all sorts of problems for them. So there's definitely some issues there. I'd say also there's a lot of predatory shark species are still going to be feeding on filter feeding fish, so that they can potentially get plastic intake that way as well. And I mean, sharks might well be in a better position than animals like sea turtles that don't have the ability to cough up plastic and are horrifically badly affected by plastic pollution. But there can also be some of the chemicals that are retained in plastics can offload into the tissues of the animals that ingest them. So even if they're able to pass through the plastic itself, there still might be some kind of chronic effects on things like reproduction and that. And it's not something that is well understood in whale sharks particularly, but certainly there seems to be a bit of literature coming out showing that these what they call sublethal effects can definitely be an issue for a lot of marine species, especially marine mammals. There has been some research on that.
Okay, thank you, Simon. There are two more questions. There's one general question. This is by Mr. Maulik Patak. He is a journalist. So he wants to know that there are lots of debates about the whale shark genetic uniqueness along Indian coast. So do the panelists think that the whale shark which is coming to the Indian coast are genetically different from the other population? So I think the panelists, any of the panelists can take this question.
Well, just to kick it off, so the genetics results that have come in so far for whale sharks have actually shown they seem to have quite a kind of highly conserved genetic structure. So because they've got such a long lifespan, they're so late to mature, and they've been around for a while. Like the species is thought to be about 23 million years old at this point. The genetics don't change very quickly. So at the moment, it's looking like a lot of the Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, especially, there isn't too much variation in there. It will be really interesting to go forward with some of the more advanced techniques that are available now, like the population level genomics and things, and that might give a bit higher resolution into questions like that. But based on the sort of provisional genetic results, there's unlikely to be too much difference from the sort of surrounding areas, the Indian Ocean. But if it is, like if they are primarily an Indian population, like going into the open ocean and sort of coming back and not going too much further afield, that'll be a pretty interesting one to see if they are different from the surrounding areas.
Okay, thank you, Simon. I think since we are running out of time, because lots of questions coming in, because many people are telling that Simon is a good photographer, so if they would like to see really good underwater footages of you. So lots of questions coming in. I'll take one more question because that question is for Rahul Pandey, IFS. So they wants to know that what are the efforts taken for the conservation of whale shark along the Andhra coast, especially in Kakinada. There are reports of killing whale sharks. So what are the efforts?
In case of killing of whale shark, even the cases have been registered. And first and foremost, we are basically creating a lot of awareness programs there. And Kakinada coast, it has been reported. So most important thing is the awareness program. And then also if somebody is willingly doing that, then it comes to the enforcement. So we are going to take up all the issues now very, very seriously and put all the efforts to basically control this killing of the whale sharks, and a program we will put in place that if any whale shark is caught in the net, we will be compensating the value of that net to the fishermen. So that also we will taking up. So it was started also, but it happened only in the one case. Afterwards, reports also not have come forward. Now, at least with the survey, some good data is also available. So with the help of the data, we will put our forest guard and section officers with the fisheries department on the landing stations. So wherever more occurrences are there, where more number of the landing of whale shark has been reported. So we will be having a now much better strategy, and to ensure that it is controlled. And in case of if it is intentional, definitely it will be there will be enforcement, and people will be brought to the book. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pandey sir. Again, there are lots of questions coming in, but I think since we are running out of time, I think I'm giving the mic back to moderator BC Chaudhary sir to take the action, because I don't think so we can take all the questions. And some questions are regarding the migration of whale shark from India. I think that Dr. Meekan have already told about that thing. We are working on a paper. So most likely if the paper is out, then that paper can throw many insights about the migration of whale shark from India. Over to you, BC sir. So kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah. If you have a range of your questions, still unanswered, and it is targeted to a particular speaker, maybe you can actually forward those on the email to them, and maybe the answers will come from them. If that is a possibility, please do that, so that at least the questions, then we can pass it on to the people, those who have asked that question at a later stage. Okay. I think, we have really exceeded our time. We started 15 minutes earlier, and we are actually almost 15 minutes ahead of our time. Let me first of all thank our panel members. I think, Rachel, Mark, Simon, and Rahulji. I think, it's a pity that Dr. K.K. Binis couldn't share the platform today with us because of the rain and connectivity problem. Otherwise, he could have filled in some of the information from the Andaman Nicobar group of islands and the Andaman Sea as well. I think, he has a lot of information for that. Let me also say, I think, a range of things, which talked about. I would say Rachel talked about, livelihood and the natural distribution pattern of the whale shark and other species of sharks concerned, how it will affect science as well as livelihood of people. Rahulji, you talked a very great deal about, what exactly Andhra Pradesh government wanting to do as far as whale shark is concerned. But from our side, may we suggest you to concentrate on signages and hoardings on the landing sites, so that at least the people are aware. That's one good thing which we have seen on the west coast of India in the state of Karnataka. The awareness level actually jumps manifold higher if signages and hoardings are there, giving information about the species requirement. Mark, you talked about two important things. Ship strike, bycatch is significant, and the option in India for tagging, and what great scientific information that can actually come out of that. Yes, we will probably now moving into the tags which can be recovered with a plethora of data already in those tags. Unfortunately, our tagging exercise has not continued as we have wanted it to be. But in the next couple of years, hopefully we will have a renewed tagging operation going in the Indian waters, just on the west coast of India, possibly in the east coast of India, Lakshadweep, as well as Andaman Nicobar Islands. Simon, you talked a great deal about the research challenges, particularly with the climate change and the distributional pattern changes, and shift in the habitat use of adult individuals particularly. The habitat relationship of larger individuals is something which need to be known. Unfortunately, in our capture and release operation, we do not find very large size individuals in our 787 rescues that has been done, but we simply do not have individuals which are over 35, 40 feet in length. So I think, we probably need to be looking at that. You also talked about the sightings in Seychelles, Mozambique, Madagascar, which are still a question mark, where they are originating and what are the possibilities of identifying their place of origin and their movement patterns and so on. And you also talked about vessel strike and plastic pollution as a challenge, not just in Southeast Asia, Indonesia and Java. You gave 2 examples, 137 pieces of plastic every hour, and that's a lot. And also longevity and the possibility of their reaching adulthood in 40 years or so. I think these informations, once they are confirmed, will probably provide a lot of shift in the research that has been done so far. Particularly age of sexual maturity, if it is known. I think we probably need to be classifying based on the size class into what category. We know an individual in its size class, but we don't know what age it belongs to. So I think these information will provide a lot of insight into researchers. I think we are exceeding our time. I would at this point of time like to thank our panelists. In spite of almost change in the date, Rachel is still sitting in front of her laptop listening to our talks. Hopefully tomorrow morning she will get up a little late and ruminate over what she has spoken and so what she has heard in the questions and so on. Mark, again, I think it would be almost tea time for you in Australia, and I think you did a wonderfully good thing to join this panel. So also Simon, I think I would like to thank all the speakers, Mark, Rachel, Simon, and Rahul, and the number of people who are actually participating in this webinar. Maybe their questions have not been answered directly. Each question is very difficult to answer, but we will make an attempt to send these questions to the respective speakers and possibly have the answers back to us so that we can share these answers with you. And I said in the beginning, this is a curtain raiser to the actual International Whale Shark Day celebration on 30th August, this Sunday. And hopefully our young fanatics of whale shark, the people who participated on the painting competition, the people who participated in the quiz competition, they also participate in our annual event of the International Whale Shark Day and the Gujarat Whale Shark Day. They would probably be missing if we don't do anything on the 30th of August. So hopefully we have 2 days more to look into what can possibly be done, at least in the intensely studied area of our Viraval, Damlej and other areas where our project scientists are located. And we will see that the International Whale Shark Day, the curtain raiser and the main event does not go unnoticed by people at large and also the media at large, because in this pandemic time, media has been covering a lot about wildlife, and hopefully this year we will find the media covering a big story as far as the whale shark is concerned. From my side as a moderator for this session, I would like to thank everybody, and I would like to say that this has been an enriching experience of listening to our enlightened speakers who not only gave a global perspective, but also how this global scenario can have an impact on the Indian population of the whale shark. Thank you very much, one and all. Thanks very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we leave, we have a message from Srivastav, sir, Sanjay Srivastav, sir, CCF Junagadh, to convey a message. Srivastav, sir.
Sure.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Yes, Srivastav.
Yes. Yeah, before we end, in my talk, I forgot to mention thanks to very important partner of the whole project, that is our field staff and fishermen folk. So before we end, I would like to thank all the field staff who are actually involved at the field level interact with fisher folk, and obviously the fisher folk who take the message correctly and cooperate with the forest department. And I also thank all the participants who conveyed their ideas and participated in all this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, over to the moderator.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Srivastavaji. I think, without the participation of the field staff, without the participation of the fisher folks who spend their entire life in the sea, I think, any conservation effort for the marine megafauna or any marine megafauna is practically impossible. I think, they are like spokes in the wheel. Without the spokes, the wheel will not be there. And I think, if we cannot think of the field staff and the fisher folks, I think our projects will remain unanswered at all. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you all dignitaries and participants. It was really nice to interacting with everyone. So hope everybody had a really good time. And from the Welsha Conservation Project, I would like to thank all the participants, all the esteemed panelists for sharing their valuable information as well as valuable time. Thank you all. Thank you.